So The Lion King is my all-time favorite Disney movie. The songs are great, the animation is beautiful for being made in 1994, and Scar is a pretty amazing Disney villain. I mean, look at that mane. So flawless. There are multiple morals that we, the audience, learn in the movie. Number 1, the circle of life. Number 2, Hakuna Matata. And number 3, don't run from your past because it makes you who you are. Really deep. Aside from the second moral that we learned from Timon and Pumbaa, the other two we learned through Mufasa. Even after his death, Mufasa is there for guidance. But there's a theory that shows that Mufasa's words aren't the only thing that is helping Simba. It's actually his actions. Mufasa is using the weather to push Simba to become the rightful king of Pride Rock. The first time we see the relationship between Mufasa and Simba is when Simba wakes him up early in the morning so he can take him to the top of Pride Rock. This is when the famous meme of Simba, everything the light touches is your kingdom starts. Mufasa also explains to Simba that when the sun sets on his time, it will rise with Simba as the new king. He also takes Simba across the kingdom explaining the circle of life. Back to lesson number 1. When everyone dies, their bodies become the grass, and then the antelope eat the grass, then the lions eat the antelope, and then yay, the circle of life just keeps going on. This is all foreshadowing our theory, by the way, because right when we see Scar telling the lionesses that Mufasa and Simba were killed in the stampede, it is completely dark. This could be because, it's nighttime, but I think it goes with how the sun set and will not rise yet until Simba has become the one in power. Another piece of foreshadowing is when Mufasa tells Simba that if he ever needs help, he can always look up to the stars, because the kings of the past are up there, and one day, he will be too. This is when red flags are waving because the next scene that we see Simba and Mufasa in is when Mufasa dies. Spoiler. Now we got all the dialogue out of the way, let's focus on Mufasa's actions after his passing. We find out since Scar became king, there has been no food or water. This is because of a huge drought. Droughts dry up the land, which pretty much causes all the grass to die out. This unbalances the circle of life because the antelope herds decide to leave Pride Rock because there's no grass around. The lionesses choose not to venture out to try to find food because they only want to stay in their kingdom. Notice how the drought started right after Mufasa died. Now why did Mufasa cause the drought? Well, you would say it's because he wants Scar to step down from the throne. But Scar isn't giving up that easily. It's actually because he wanted Simba to connect with his true self. He can't bring Simba to his past, so he's bringing the past to him. The drought causes Nala to go out and find food elsewhere. Mufasa knew that Nala would leave to go find food because she is very adventurous, and she would do anything to help her pride. We don't know how Mufasa led Nala directly to Simba, but let's just assume the only place that wasn't hit by the drought was the place that Simba currently was at. Let's move on to another part of weather that Mufasa controlled. Wind. After a scene where Simba is thinking about Mufasa's lesson about the great kings of the past, he goes off to a cliff and flops down on some grass, causing some leaves to fly off. These leaves drifted all the way to Rafiki's tree. Rafiki mixes the leaves around, and he discovers that they were sent to him by Mufasa. This reveals that it is time to go to Simba to help him out. Then, we know what's next. Mufasa's plan with Nala didn't work, so he decides to step into the ring. He appears in the clouds and explains to Simba that he must return to Pride Rock because it is his rightful place in the circle of life. After he leaves, Rafiki says, "The weather! Very peculiar." And Simba adds with, "The winds are changing." This leads to the last evidence of our theory, a huge lightning storm. Simba goes back to Pride Rock to face off against Scar, but Scar decides to spit out some lies to get the lionesses to turn against Simba. Because, Simba still believes that he actually killed his father. When Scar backs Simba off a cliff, a huge lightning bolt strikes the bushes below, causing a huge wildfire. Now, lightning usually strikes the highest point in the area. And since they aren't at the tippy top of Pride Rock, I'd say this is a bit odd. We see you, Mufasa. We know you're pissed. After Simba defeats Scar, the craziest thing happens. It rains. After years of being in a drought, at the exact moment Simba becomes the rightful king, it starts to downpour. This leads the kingdom to becoming alive again. Everything is back to the balanced life that Mufasa wanted. Is the weather in The Lion King a coincidence, or did Mufasa do all of this on purpose? To really prove this theory, I decided to ask some friends of mine for help. I'm so happy I went to college with meteorologists. First, let's look at how fast a place can fall into a drought, And how does a drought even happen? According to most meteorologists, droughts are a period where rainfall is below average. These averages take notice about a month or so of the below average rainfall. This makes sense because when we are first told that there is a drought, it is several years after Simba initially ran away from Pride Rock. And droughts can last a long time, especially in hot places like Africa. Mufasa knew that he can make this drought last until Simba became king again. But did the rain that we see after Scar's defeat really balance out the kingdom? The initial rain after a drought can be very powerful, even if it's inches of rain. We can calculate that the final scene in the movie, where Rafiki holds up Simba and Nala's baby cub, would probably take place 3.5 months after the roar scene, because that's how long a lioness is pregnant. That means that Mufasa made it rain a few times a day until the land was back to normal. Also, East Africa, which is where the movie takes place, has very sporadic rainfall periods throughout the year. So I suppose the rain can just be a coincidence. The second point is if Mufasa used the wind to get Rafiki to go to Simba. Can wind drift objects far away? There's a huge difference between the area Timon and Pumbaa lived and where Rafiki's tree is. When there is a large open area that wind can drift through, especially if it's flat, there is no problem for something light like leaves to drift across. If there is nothing to stop the wind, the leaves can continue to blow. But since we see the leaves that Simba sends off to Rafiki travel through the night into the day, the wind would have to be strong and consistent. Mufasa would have had to make the wind stable and stay in the right direction for quite some time. For Mufasa appearing in the clouds, that just doesn't happen in nature. So for Mufasa controlling the weather, I'd say this theory is pretty true. Or this could all be just an artistic plot choice. I'm going to give this theory 4 lightning bolts out of 5. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Cartoon Conspiracy. Let me know if you liked my analysis. And if you didn't, Hakuna Matata. Subscribe to the channel for more videos. See you guys soon.